Welcome back to Las Vegas Diaries. I'm Kelly O. My guest today is the beautiful, talented, sharp, and funny Dani Elizabeth. Dani is the host over at Crazy Girls at Planet Hollywood. She keeps the audience engaged, entertained, laughing, on their toes, and she's also a featured dancer in the show as well as performing with the ensemble, which is just amazing that she can do all of that. She's a jack of many trades. She's a Renaissance woman. She's definitely talented. Dani and I first met when we were both showgirls at Jubilee. We also worked together at Purple Reign and even at Crazy Girls when I worked there myself. She is also a magician's assistant or partner or sidekick to the amazing Murray Sawchuck, who is also her boyfriend and partner. And on top of all of that, she also has her degree in marketing. She also happens to be one of my closest friends, and I'm so excited to have her on Las Vegas Diaries. I hope you enjoy my interview with Dani Elizabeth. Hi, I'm here with Dani Elizabeth. Welcome to Las Vegas Diaries. Thanks for coming on, Dani.
Hey, thanks, Kelly. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. So for those of you that don't know Dani, she is the host or the MC of Crazy Girls at Planet Hollywood. And we met actually working at Jubilee. So if you don't mind, Dani, could you tell us a little bit about your dance training and where you grew up?
Absolutely, yeah. I grew up in upstate New York, and I trained in ballet from the time I was 4 until 18. And then from there, I did a college dance team at UNC Charlotte, and then went back home and I did a semi-pro football dance team for arena football and basketball as well. And then still going to college, I was in the dance company, and I was like, now I need an internship. So let me just take one in LA. That seems to make sense because then I can dance all the time. So I went out to LA, and after a few years, I started auditioning for shows and happened to audition for Jubilee. That was here in Las Vegas at Bally's, which that's where we got to meet each other. And that was, oh my gosh, that was now 8 years ago. Crazy. 8 years ago. 8 years ago in August. And so I did Jubilee, and then you brought me into the Purple Reign show, and I got to swing there, and now Crazy Girls.
Okay, so what was it when you got hired at Jubilee? Were you thinking, oh, this sounds interesting, I'll give it a try, or were you really interested in moving to Las Vegas?
I was really interested in getting any type of dance performance career, and I actually knew nothing about Jubilee at the time because it is a topless show. There was limited things to be able to look up on the internet, so I knew that it was a showgirl show, and there were topless and covered positions available, and I did not care. I just wanted to be in the show anyway. And so I moved out here before ever even seeing the show because I got the job position when I auditioned in LA. And I told myself I was just going to be in the show for one contract, which at the time was 6 months. And then I was going to go back to LA and find my grown-up career. So now I'll go back to LA and work in marketing. And yeah, 6 months. And now it's been almost 8 years that I've been in Vegas. So obviously I do love it. It's being on stage is just, it's unlike anything.
I have a funny story about Dani when she was at Jubilee because we were in the same line. We were short nudes together. And one of my favorite things was there was, I think, 10 girls in a dressing room and we all had our spot. And unfortunately, Dani, because of that contract and whoever was leaving, there weren't any spots in the dressing room, right? So they put her in the other room with the different dancer, with the different line of dancers. And before the show, our line would get notes for the show that she had to hear. So she would come in and sit on the floor and do her makeup and listen to notes. The poor thing.
So behind your chair too, like behind your spot.
Yeah, which is how we got to know each other a little bit. But also, I just remember she had such a good attitude about it, and she, like, it didn't bother her, even though I think most people would have been really annoyed that they didn't really have a spot in the dressing room. She was, like, super chill about it.
No, I was like, I'm in a show. I have a job. I will sit on the floor and do my makeup. It is cool. And you were just the best, Kel. Like, you would always turn around, and you're like, oh, do you need something else? Or, oh, here, usually, we like to do this with our eyes here, just trying to, like, nurture me and guide me a little bit to make sure that, I could stay in the clear and stay out of trouble. Do my makeup right, lips and lashes.
God, I hope I wasn't bossing you around. But yeah, I remember.
God, no, you were the best. That's why you're one of my closest friends to this day.
Love
Sweet.
you. Okay, so how did you get into Crazy Girls? And you were a swing when you started, and now you're the host of the show. So how did that happen?
So I did Jubilee all the way up into the last show. And at the time I was really going through a lot of like physical issues. I had plantar fasciitis and a bunch of things happening with my body. And I was like, oh, I don't think that I want to dance anymore, at least professionally. It's too much. It hurts. And every show in town was offering Jubilee free tickets to go see all the shows because they're like, oh, this is gold. 120 dancers looking for work very soon. Let's see if we can recruit some of them. So we all, took up the opportunity to go see shows after our one show nights. And one night I saw Crazy Girls and I was like, wow, we have like, at the time, I think when Jubilee ended, we had, maybe 85 people, not quite what it used to be at 120. But I watched Crazy Girls. I was like, there's 6 people on that stage. I was like, that's incredible. And every girl looked beautiful. Every girl was featured in a different way. I was like, and it's a very sensual show. Whereas Jubilee is, all about the costumes and the lines. And Crazy Girls was about, this other sexual side that was something new and different, at least in the sense of show business for me. And I was like, well, they're having an audition. Maybe I'll just go just for the heck of it. So I went and ended up getting a position, which I found out on the last night, our last show night at Jubilee, officially found out that they were hiring me as a swing. And so then I learned the show and went into Crazy Girls and was swinging for about 3 or 4 months before I got hired as a full-time dancer. And I loved it. It was so great. It was such a great show. And we learn different solos and different tracks, so it keeps you busy, not feeling like you're doing the same thing all the time. Then about a year into the show, at the time, we had a male comedy magician that would do the center part of the show, and he would come out a couple times and announce the girls. Well, my producer, Navarre Alamon, said, oh, Dani, you're from New York. You're Italian. You like to talk a lot. Do you think that you would talk to the people on the stage? And I was like, well, yeah. And he's like, okay, put together a 15-minute monologue and show it to me. And I was like, okay. So then I started doing that. I was like, oh my God, what did I just sign myself up for? But, I figured it out. I was lucky enough to have some friends that had been doing that kind of stuff for a long time and put together some material that's comedy based, where I talk to the audience and talk about what it's like to be a woman dating through Tinder and Bumble and all those things, and made jokes about it. And now it's been about 2 years and I've been hosting the show and dancing in it, and also do the social media stuff for the show, which has been really fun because I get to use my college degree stuff and put that towards everything about Crazy Girls. So it's been a fun little venture so far.
Talk about taking an opportunity and grabbing it by the reins and just going with it. Like, I think obviously Norbert saw something in you that, is not every dancer could do this. Like, this dancing and being a host are completely different things. They take completely different talents. Most dancers, we don't ever speak on stage, let alone host an entire show. So it takes a completely different skill set and a certain type of personality. So kudos to Norbert, I guess, for recognizing and seeing that in you and giving you that opportunity. But then the fact that you took something that you had never done before and made it. So if you haven't seen Crazy Girls, she's amazing. She carries the show on her back. I was lucky enough to work with Dani at Crazy Girls for a little while, and she carries the show on her back. If it weren't for her, I don't know. Like, she holds the show together. She keeps the audience entertained. Meanwhile, she's also doing solos and ensemble numbers in the show as a dancer, which is just, there's no other show in Vegas that has that. So it's really something incredible to see. But before we go on to keep talking about that, I want to backtrack to Jubilee, because I realize I haven't asked anybody this yet. What was it like closing Jubilee? Because I left the show before it closed, and I've actually gotten a few questions about, a show that ran for 35 years and at closing. And if you want to talk about the Frank Gatson revamp at all, go. If you don't want to talk about it, that's okay. But what are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, to say the least, it was emotional. I think it was emotional for everyone, whether you were planning on leaving that contract, which for that point in time, I felt like I had done everything that I could do with that show. So I was thinking about leaving that contract before the contract got shut because we had to close. But it was a very surreal, emotional day, especially because the show was such a large production show. So between the cast members and the crew and the ushers and even the upper management, which, you know, everybody had a different perspective of what they wanted to happen and what they were feeling, but there were well over 120 people that were involved with the show one way or another, and it was very emotional because it was such a long running show, and even though there were so many people involved, it still was a family atmosphere. And there were so many friendships like ours that I had just moved here for Jubilee. So those friendships that I made then, in that I still have now, it's like it all came from that show. um, so yeah, it was very emotional, a little bit stressful too, because not everyone knew what they were doing after that. And even though I got hired as a swing for this new show, I still didn't know at the time what would come of that. So everybody was a bit heightened and sad, just because it's Jubilee was iconic at the time and still to this day to what Vegas is all about. So yeah, it was definitely a high emotional day, but at the same time, it was so cool to be a part of that very last show, that very last curtain call. Um, you know, every day everybody works so hard, and as you know, we've both been injured before or had personal traumatic things happen to us. And as a performer, you go to work, you get on that stage, and nothing matters in those few minutes that you're on that stage. And it was interesting to see that final curtain call happen, and also know that it was the last one and you could no longer really separate your emotions while being on stage. There was those last few minutes that everything just kind of accumulated, and you're like, wow, I'm very emotional and I can't separate this because it's about this curtain closing in front of me right now. So you see girls on stage with their big backpacks, and everybody's doing that little, you know, and you're like still smiling and tears kind of dripping down. But so yeah, I mean, it was sad, but also just amazing to be a part of that, and always have that memory, and to be able to recall back on the friendships and the things that we got to do together, being a part of such an amazing, iconic production.
What a beautiful way to put that. I don't think I've ever heard anybody describe it that way. You really touched me when you said all that. And profound. You got a little metaphysical there. Could you talk a little bit, if you don't want to, that's okay, but can you talk a little bit about the Frank Gatson revamp? So those of you that don't know, Jubilee, it changed a little bit through the years, but for a very long time, the show ran with the same choreography, the same costumes, the same sets, which in my opinion is part of what made it great, because you were watching a time capsule, a piece of Vegas history. And then in 2014, 2 years before the show closed, they decided to completely redo the show. And Dani was there for that. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, in the beginning, it was very, very exciting that we were going to have this revamp and be a part of that, because that's another historical landmark for this, you know, 35 year run show, having this, you know, revamp to put something new and exciting and be a part of that. So there was a lot of excitement and a lot of eagerness throughout the cast. During that time, I'd say majority of the cast started feeling this decline of excitement, just because of the way things were unorganized, and the time wasn't utilized well. There were many, many days that several of us would just sit in the theater for the entire rehearsal, which they were about 8-hour days, sit there cold, you know, because there wasn't organization. I don't think that, you know, without saying anything negative on the Frank Gatson team, I just don't think that they knew how to prepare themselves to come into close to 100 people and how to work in different tracks, which brings me to the point that Don Arden is a complete genius because it's not an easy task to take on. So towards the end, there was a lot of things to work out, but thank God we had Diane Palm that was there from the beginning. And she's like, okay, we will fix this. And, we go backstage and we fixed it. And as the show started running again, the kinks were worked out and things were taken out and some other things were put back in. And so then it started feeling normal and fun and exciting again. But it's a shame that revamp wasn't more than what actually came of it. But I still think the show was great all the way up to the final curtain call.
Yeah. Interesting take on it. And also I can definitely relate to being stuck in a studio for 8 hours and doing nothing. I worked for a certain magic show that will not be named where I was stuck in a rehearsal studio all day, not allowed to leave. And it can be really demoralizing, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for weeks on end too, because I think that was about a 3-month process or 2.5-month process that we had the show closed. And then by the end of it, most of the short nude tracks that I was in hadn't changed at all. There was only like 1 or 2 things. And then the show reopened up, and then I had to go and learn a track that was put into the show because they took other people out. And I'm like, well, why couldn't I have learned that in the 2.5 months instead of sitting on my heating pad in the theater? But it's cool. We will make it happen because that's what we do.
And that's the way dancers are. We just suck it up and deal with it, right? Okay, so let's get back to you being a host, because this is one of the coolest things about Dani. And again, if you haven't seen Crazy Girls, I'm sure it's going to reopen. So when it reopens, go see Dani. She's amazing. She's so funny. She's just charming and brilliant. So let's talk about you being a host. What does it feel like to speak to a room, to improvise, to ad lib with guests? What does that feel like?
It's like that. It's like for a dancer, it's like that first feeling when you go on stage for the first time of doing any show or any performance. It's so invigorating and exciting almost every time I get on stage while I'm hosting. Because as you know, when you work in a show for a while and you're doing the same tracks, it can feel a little bit stagnant because there's no change in it and you get used to doing it. But every time I go on stage and I speak to an audience, the audience is always different. So I'm always going to receive different answers to the questions that I ask, or different reactions, different amounts of engagement. And to me, that's what makes it exciting. It's almost like a game. Like, okay, what do I have to do to bring you in and give you the best night of your life because I am ready for the task? And I think that's my favorite part about it. And some days are more challenging than others, for sure. And I'm like, oh man, they're just, I'm trying to they're making me pull it out of them. But I still enjoy those days because it makes me work harder and it makes me learn more about the things that I need to improve and the things that I can change in my dialogue to engage people more. And I believe if you're not making if the audience isn't happy with the show or the performance, it's usually the performer, not the audience. So and even though I don't believe that to always be true, I always keep that in mind when I'm on stage speaking to an audience, because I know that if I could change something, then maybe I could have nabbed them in a different way.
That's really smart. So part of your job as you're hosting is being a comedian of sorts. You're making people laugh, and she's really good at it. So talk about maybe your aspirations as a stand-up comedian and how that's going and what you're thinking about that.
Yeah, so especially with this downtime that we have right now, the COVID downtime, when our show reopens, I'm working on putting together a new bit to address, where we've all been the past couple months. And I'm going to do that from a funny point of view, because that's what my job position entails. So I'm working on some new material to put into the show based on, current events. And in the future, I'd like to get more into comedy and do more stand-up. I had just started venturing out and doing a couple stand-up things here, and I did one in LA for fun to test out material. So now when the world comes back, I'm going to continue to do the same thing and take some of the new material that I'm working on now and test that out on other stages. And my dream is to have a Netflix special someday.
I can't wait. I cannot wait for that to happen because I know that it will. And I'm so excited for your future in stand-up. It's really, just side note, I'm a huge stand-up fan. I've always been since I was a kid. I'm weird. I don't know. It's just something I'm really into. And Dani and I have been good friends for a while. So when she started to become a stand-up of sorts, I just got so excited for her, and I can't wait to see what she does with it.
That's what I love about you. You're just such a positive, supportive friend. It's so nice. I appreciate it.
I don't know if I'm always positive, but I do try to be a supportive friend. Okay, let's talk about your boyfriend, your partner.
Yeah.
Is Murray Sawchuck, the magician, and you work with him sometimes.
I do, yes. He's brought me into a show when his guest act can't do the show any longer. If he has something else going on, he'll bring me in, and I don't do magic, but I do the side chick comedy part and assist him with his magic. And that's really fun because I can do that show and then pop down to my show right after. And then we've done different TV shows, Masters of Illusion, different things for dog charity shows that he works with. And
I think he just
he's really appeared. I'm trying to like concentrate on my words and he's back here making faces. So yeah, that's been a lot of fun. I love working with him and he's so inspiring to work with. He always knows exactly how he likes to do things and how things can be done. And for me, somebody who tends to sometimes like be in my head or be a little uneasy, it's really nice to work with a partner that's like, okay, no, you're having a moment, you're second guessing, fine, just do it like this. And I'm like, that sounds good, I'll do that. And then when I know exactly how I want something or done, then I just do that. So it's a nice balance that we have. We're working on a TV show in Canada, and there's 4 countries that are interested in it, and it's a reality magic comedy show, and I do the comedy magic side chick relief character, and we're gonna start filming for that this fall. So that's really exciting, and looking forward to doing that. But yeah, it's a nice balance.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see that show. That's really exciting. Congrats. And yeah, being a magician's assistant is also a completely different thing from there's being a dancer, being a showgirl, being a comedian, being an MC, and being a magician's assistant. All of those things are completely different.
I guess they are. I love doing the magician assistant stuff. Most of the stuff that I've done with Murray has been, helping with the tricks and turning things and being the presenter. I got to tell you, the trickiest stuff is trying to fit a 5'9" body in some of those little boxes and stuff. I'm like, okay, I have more bruises now than, when I do my own show, as I'm sure you know.
I still have scars on my knees from trying to fit into a trick at 5'9". So yeah, not easy to be taller. You mentioned that you have an aspiration of having a Netflix special and getting into stand-up comedy. What are some of your other goals or things that you are interested in doing?
Well, I also do massage therapy. So even though right now with my performance life and comedy and all of that, I'm pretty busy. I still do massage therapy, but at some point I would like to build that business even more in the future. And doing my stand-up and for us to really nail this TV series that we're working on, that's kind of like the main dream and end goal.
I think you'll do it. So last question, I ask this of all my guests. Anybody that is thinking of moving to Las Vegas to become either a dancer or in your case, a magician's assistant or an MC or a comedian, what advice do you have for them?
Do it. Don't think twice. Throw yourself into uncomfortable situations because that's the hardest thing for myself. So if I can do it, you can do it. And just put yourself out there and be open to meeting people, because I know sometimes that's difficult. Let people in, and set your boundaries, and figure out if there's somebody that could bring something to your life, whether it's a friendship, a working relationship, or help support you or help you to be a better person, whatever it is. I think that our community has the best place, it's the best city to live in for this industry, with the best options of people that are just genuine, amazing, beautiful inside and out people. And I think that the people here are what makes you successful, and to be open to that.
Well said. It's about your relationships. Thank you for coming on, Dani. It was awesome. And thank you, Murray. I don't know if you're still there, but thanks for the cameo. And we can't wait to have you on soon. We're going to be interviewing Murray as well. I'm really excited. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. I think he yelled thank you from the other room.
Okay, bye, Dani. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Dani. I did forget to ask her social media handles, but all of that will be in the description below, of course. So make sure you go and give her a follow on social media. And don't forget, you can head over to the Kelly O Facebook page where you can see my future guests. You can ask them questions for my upcoming interviews. You can ask me questions. You can give me feedback and just be involved in what I'm doing here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you guys in the next video.